What's up, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Talk and Pop podcast. I am Rob, and with me, as always, are Kelly and Brad.
Heyo.
Hey, everybody.
Guys, we made it. It was a long, winding, emotional, dramatic road.
Frustrating.
But also, after watching this episode, some deeply satisfying moments. But it was a journey. Obi-Wan Kenobi was a journey. We're going to talk all about the season finale. But first, we need to give Stranger Things some love. We got our first look at the trailer for season 4, part 2. We didn't talk a whole lot about season 4, part 1, which was an epic miss. Probably the biggest miss in Talk and Pop history was not doing a big enough deep dive into that first season, but it just dropped at a time where it was just content overload and something needed to go by the wayside, and it was that.
I'm pretty sure it was Top Gun, Obi-Wan, and Stranger Things all in one
all
weekend.
In the same weekend. Yeah,
which was an unbelievable.
Something's got to give. Although we did watch it all, it was just a matter of being able to discuss it all at great length. So
we talked about it off air, if that's of any consequence to the rest of the listeners. But yes, we did watch it and we talked about it at length. But we need to talk about it more, and we need to gear up for part 2.
My biggest takeaway when watching that trailer is I was waiting for the shot of the Vecna and 11 face off, the reunion, and we did not get it. We got a sort of like front shot of 11 doing her hand out using the Force thing that she does.
Rob, you're getting your shows confused.
That's right.
It's true.
We're talking about Kenobi later.
It's true, but we did not get sort of the shot I was hoping for. That's okay, because when we see it in the show, it'll mean that much more and it'll be that much bigger of a deal. But all right, we're going to start with you, Kelly. Your biggest takeaway from this first look at season 4, part 2.
Well, I actually wanted to expand on what you just said there, because there's a fan theory that I read that might illuminate why we don't see a shot like that in the trailer.
Tell us more, Kelly. Tell us more. Yeah.
I will.
Okay.
So we know that the Duffer Brothers are like they're very good at this sort of storytelling where they set things up in a very kind of simplistic way, and then they'll pay it off later with some, really big kind of action sequence or, third act wow factor amazingness. So when we think back to episode 1 of part 1, you have the Hellfire Club all hanging out with Eddie, and, they're doing their final D&D campaign.
Right.
And, they roll the dice at the end and they roll an 11. And Eddie's like, that's not like you miss, or like he declares that's not enough to win the game. And a lot of folks smarter than me
Eddie's ability to sort of like MC a Dungeons and Dragons game is did that not look like the most fun? I was not, admittedly, I was not a huge D&D guy as a kid, but
were a lot of us?
No. He makes it look like a blast.
It does.
Oh, it makes it look fun. Yeah.
Continue, Kelly.
Anyway, so that's to say that I think this may be, and nerds on the internet who are smarter than me think that it's because 11 can't do this on her own. It's not going to be good enough. We need the forces of, I don't know, friendship, maybe.
Oh God,
forces of friendship.
For some reason, I just had in my mind the Reading Rainbow, like just scroll for a second.
Maybe.
I don't know why it just came upon me.
And then I'm focused more on the possible theories, because I'll tell you right now, in watching that show, that first part, I'm sitting there going like, what the hell is going to happen here? My fiance turns to me episode like 2 and is like, I'm pretty sure that's going to be, the son of the guy who they have in jail, and he's going to be number 10, and he's going to be number 1, and he's going to be Vecna. And I'm like,
he read a spoiler.
I was literally like,
that is an unbelievable call, because you told us that you didn't tell us what it was. But you said that he had called something, and the fact that he got it bang on is
that
wild.
Seemed so out there that it literally didn't even spoil the show for me, because I was like, nah.
Yeah.
I don't know what
I
you're talking
refuse to
about.
believe that he came because when he first showed up, he was just kind of a nothing character. He was just in this sort of like loop that 11 was in, and he just looked like a guy that worked at the facility. But
either
no.
your significant other is a liar, or he's been a.
Well, we're gonna have to hook him up to a lie detector test.
I think
Yes.
there's a chance that your soon-to-be husband is a ghostwriter for Stranger Things if this is the case. Because
potentially,
my God,
this wouldn't be the
what a
first time
call.
he's ruined a show for me. But anyway, so another theory that's being kicked around now that he's also subscribed to, so we'll see, is that Eddie may be number 10. We get a few clues here. So in the trailer itself,
That's wild, yeah.
we see Eddie coming in with I know we've got the music thing, so it might just be that, but he comes in with what looks like a pretty big hero move with the guitar solo.
Yes, because we know that like music is a way out of Vecna's control.
Right, and then the other kind of cue.
Make a deal with God.
I don't know the rest. I'm not
going up that road. Okay, that's enough. We're gonna get people. People are gonna be turning this off. Anyways, continue.
And then at the very beginning of part 1, he's having a conversation with the cheerleader who dies quite quickly, and she says, "You look so different from when you were little." And he says, "Yeah, I used to have a shaved head." And I just, I've been conditioned to think that people don't say things by accident in this show. So
no, the Duffer Brothers don't write a line of dialogue for no reason. They don't do it.
I'm curious. I'm not saying that 100% this is going to happen, but this is all to say that I just love watching this show and sort of theorizing and guessing and still being surprised at the end of the day. They just did. This was a return to form this season. I had so much fun watching it, and I know what I'm doing July 1st.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think that takes me perfectly into my point, which is we've somewhat discussed this off of the podcast, but I can't seem to get over this new ground that Netflix seems to be breaking, which is this format, whether it be by COVID happenstance or this was somehow planned. And if it was planned, kudos. Netflix breaking up a full season the way that they did, I think is brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I love the fact that it kind of gives you this way of continuing that hype, continuing that dialogue that you would have in a normal week-to-week show, but we're still getting the full drops every time. So there's not this long lingering, we'll see you next year for the second half of this season. It's no, we're giving you this first. We're going to give you a little time to marinate, and then we're going to give you the other half. I think that
being hyped. Keep being hyped and have these conversations and be
It's working.
Hyped.
It's working
it's like giving you dinner and then giving you enough time to let your dinner settle before we give you this delicious dessert.
Oh my God. Wow.
Bro, what a metaphor.
Yeah.
Dear diary. That was beautiful. But it's true. But all of those think about it. I just love the fact that like I said, whether it was by happenstance or not, I'm here for it, because I didn't even understand when they were going to be dropping it. And when I heard July 1st, I was like, oh my God, a year and a bit from now, that sucks. And it was no, 3 weeks from now. And it just, everybody is still talking about the show. And I think that is I've said to you guys in the past, I just find it's the perfect marriage between a week to week and doing a full season dump in one shot. So I think it's great. And that alone, I think is something to think about going forward with other series and other shows, to elongate, to give it time to flesh it out, to let people kind of soak in story, et cetera. I'm sure we'll be diving into here in a minute with Obi-Wan. So that is my takeaway. I'm unbelievably excited for part 2 of Stranger Things.
So safe to say we will be doing a recap of part 2 on the podcast. We're going to dedicate an entire episode to it. We will not make that same mistake again. Right. And we're going to have a full Vecna conversation. I cannot wait to get into it, but I also cannot wait to get in to episode 6, the finale of Obi-Wan Kenobi, there was some extreme, and I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm not. There was some mega fan service Star Wars nerdgasm in this episode. And you're right, Brad, because I'm not going to be negative about that, because I'm the one who's been on here for weeks going, give us what we want, give us what we want. And it's like they had a checklist of things in this episode that they wanted to get through.
Yeah.
So we get our Vader and Obi-Wan confrontation. Let's start with that. Obi-Wan leaves the what are they called? Like, what do we call them? Like the refugees? Like, what do we call them?
Like, I'm thinking this is, the early kind of beginnings of the rebellion.
Yes.
And so I don't think they quite actually have a name yet, but we know that they're a part of the path. That is, so they're the path people. We'll call them that for now.
The path people.
And I think eventually this is the rebellion, and obviously a tie-in with Leia being connected and all that stuff.
Obi-Wan realizes he must confront Vader and leaves them on a little shuttlecraft and lands on this unnamed planet. And Vader just follows his anger, much to the chagrin of the Grand Inquisitor, who goes, "But Lord Vader, we must not let the refugees or whatever escape."
The path people.
Yeah, the path people.
He's just so like,
he's like the worst assistant manager ever.
Yes, he is. He's total assistant manager. Total.
Right? Like, I think we should shorten the breaks to 15 minutes as opposed to a half an hour.
The Grand Inquisitor is like the definition of middle management. Like he has like no real power with respect to like Vader, but he also is like more important than like a general.
On the ship, one of the ships.
While we're kind of poking fun at it, it actually is kind of brilliant in terms of kind of showing the juxtaposition that like everybody else in the Empire is focused on like the mission at hand and focused on the marching orders in which they have been given, and it's that Darth Vader, aka Anakin Skywalker, is always the outlier in that he is so guided by his emotions. And so as much as we are joking about like his pretty deadpan delivery. It is a good juxtaposition because it shows why he was capable of turning to the dark side, but also why he's capable of possibly being redeemed at a future time because he's so tied up in his emotions. So good storytelling, folks.
Kelly, he gets called out on that towards the end of the episode. So let's start with the Vader and Obi-Wan confrontation on this unnamed dark sort of rock cave-esque planet. Our first like really good lightsaber duel in a long time. Let's start with that. Like the lightsaber work in the sequel trilogy was not the best, and so it was nice to see like a legit lightsaber confrontation that we really haven't seen since the prequels. We get more of a look at Vader and his anger here controlling him. He thinks that he's killed Obi-Wan. Lots of references, like Vader gets the high ground, although he doesn't say he has the high ground.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it so hard. I was like, here we go.
Obi-Wan goes, "I shall do what I must," and takes his lightsaber out. And when Vader goes to crush him with all the rocks, it's the thought of Luke and Leia that returns him to full Jedi strength. And gets him out of this precarious position. And then he really goes to town on Vader and dominates him. And then we get the shot that is ripped straight out of Rebels with Ahsoka that everyone was wondering if we were going to get in this show, where he nails him in the face with the lightsaber. Part of the mask comes off. He looks up and you can see like Hayden Christensen's burnt face. An incredible shot.
An incredible moment, period.
Incredible moment. He looked
Let's not
fantastic.
discount the fact that it was his voice going in and out with James
Yes.
Earl Jones.
Incredible.
That was
We talked about the voice
unbelievable.
work last week, and it's
Yeah.
just a further testament to it. Like, this show really dawned on me that this was still kind of a Vader origin in a sense, because
It very much was. I
you
thought the
guys
same.
you guys honed in on this last week with the whole like now I am the master thing, and he still is not good enough to quite beat Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan is still holding on to like that's his friend that's inside the mask, and then you just see he's got like the yellow eyes, and he's like, you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker, I did. And like, so Anakin is completely gone. It is just
What a
full
moment.
Vader. Ewan McGregor's performance in this is fantastic. He gets all welled up and he apologizes to him. And it's just, this was like Star Wars nerdgasm to the nth degree.
Absolutely.
And they just delivered on this whole sequence between Vader and Obi-Wan was the best part of the show, in my opinion. It's what we all wanted and waited for.
Yeah, I to be honest with you, when the episode started, I knew, because we've talked about this, like it seemed like they had a lot of ground to make up in one or two episodes. There did, for me, and I think for a lot of people, did seem to be, we could nitpick a little bit, and we probably will a little bit here, just to be, transparent in the things that we liked and things we didn't like. But as far as executing the end goal in episode 5 and episode 6, they very much stuck the landing, and that is something that we have talked about at length with other Disney Plus shows and just other shows in general. Sometimes with these kind of limited series things or whatever, it's kind of like, we're with you, but it's not like that. You don't really kind of feel that end result of being like, hell yeah, you got it, like sweet. This really felt like as close as you could get to that. Having the speed bumps that they did, I thought that the end result was very good. And what we got at the end, especially like to your point, Rob, with Ewan McGregor's performance, with Hayden Christensen's performance, with the
dialogue, really well written Vader dialogue. Yes.
The dialogue, but also even scenes like between Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, like that was catching me on an emotional level that I don't think I was expecting. You kind of knew something was going to happen after episode 5, but it was kind of like that whole kind of underlying tone that I don't think has been explored until now, which is that Luke is their son. I know he's not, but he is. Mm-hmm. And that was very apparent in those scenes, that there was this real emotional level that we really haven't gotten before, that how much he means to them. And he's not just some like burden. Because there's times even in, you go back to, A New Hope, it seems a little chippy and a little like this, that, and the next thing, which is normal. That's normal family stuff, but you just it's not fleshed out enough. And I actually thought that was so great that they took that moment to kind of go back and kind of explore the love that is in that family as well. So just things like that, I just was like, man, where was all of this throughout maybe the whole thing? But not being negative, I thought that they crushed it in episode 5 and 6 especially.
Kelly, do you want to comment on Vader and Obi-Wan?
Yeah, I mean, like what you guys already said, that was the best moments of this show, like by a mile. And justice for Hayden Christensen. I mean, you guys talked about how Ewan McGregor pulls that scene off with the emotion, but like the evil coming through this much of that man's face was incredible. And, maybe this opens up discussion about the show more broadly. It just left me going, oh my God, like they did this so well. Mm-hmm. They closed this out so well. I just wish we had, and I said this last week, I just wish we had a few more like flashbacks throughout the rest of the season.
I know.
Listen, there's two different discussions. There's two different discussions here. There's this episode, and then there's this show as a whole.
Yeah, because I take with me what I know of Star Wars lore and what I know from what's happened in some of the animated shows, just geek theories in general, what I like to put into it and stuff. But if I'm taking what's been put on the silver screen, and I'm gonna count, even though it's a television show, this is a part of the cinematic Star Wars universe. Like we still haven't ever seen Anakin be this amazing warrior, Jedi, hothead, all of the things that go into the complicated relationship and that really show us how this happened to like the sweet little boy that they, saved, and how he becomes this evil person. And so I'm watching this battle and I'm going, if it wasn't for what I knew about Star Wars, I would be sitting here going, this is like good acting and stuff, but like, why are they so mad at each other? Or like, why is he so mad at him? And so I just wish we got more shown to us instead of what we have to bring to it ourselves.
I really want to focus on this episode and don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I do want to make it apparent, like, there are my thoughts in isolation, like of moments in this specific episode where I'm like, oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
But then there are my holistic thoughts on the show, and like, oh my God, this was so frustrating. These 6 episodes.
Yeah, it's true. I think
frustrating.
As much as we don't want to go down a total, synopsis of every single little thing throughout the entirety of the show, it's kind of hard not to do a little bit of both, because one hand washes the other, right? Like we got to episode 6 because of 1 through 5. And so you can't the payoff with certain characters and everything. I do think that there was really good moments for a lot of them. I think the payoff for everybody in the end was solid.
Yes.
Was solid. And I'm glad that we got there. But it could have been
how we got
much
there.
more.
Yes.
There could have been so much more, because even the moments in this episode where there was so much emotional strength in certain scenes, like with Obi-Wan speaking to Leia about, how he did know her mother, and the amazing parts of her that he sees in her, and the amazing parts of her father, which literally I just went like, it was just because, again, he hasn't, and this is post that fight that they just had, and he still is now remembering, I almost said Hayden, is now remembering Anakin in his better times, and in those times where they were, on these missions together, and like in the Rebel Wars and all these things, in the Clone Wars and all that. And it's just, I think that it holds so much weight. And
realizing that his friend is truly dead. So I think that's,
and being able to speak about him in that way.
Yes. In delivering, because Anakin delivers the line of like, you didn't kill him, I killed him. Oh. And so, when you look into his eye, it's like, oh no, he's gone. And like, yeah.
But then you also know the turn at the end of, Return of the Jedi, when he does come back. Like, all of this holds so much weight. And it's just because it's like, but that's what I think is generally, and again, we're not going to go down like a whole road here, but like, I think that is where the frustration lies for a lot of us, is that it's like, it's all there. And the fact is that we know it's there, but we want it blended into this new storytelling that we're getting with this series, and you're just not doing it, is, for lack of a better word, annoying, because it's just like, we already know, but we want to see it. We don't we know, but we don't know. Like, we want to see you execute on those moments.
It would have been so great. And then Rob will get back to this episode, I promise. But it would have been so great to have some flashbacks showing that Anakin that he describes to Leia, right? Like more of that, where you have a couple of scenes where the two of them are palling around and they're being brothers and they're being whatever. And then you juxtapose that with scenes like the one they did in episode 5, where you can start to see that he's a conflicted person, and that he, you know, his emotions can get the better of him, and that he's competitive, and he's got these other, you know, personality traits that are ripe for the taking from the dark side. And it's like, and if we had just done that, you could have done I think I said this in verbatim last week, so, you know, I'm repeating myself here, but like, you could have done the exact same show plus those scenes, and I think people would be saying that this was like
one of the best executed shows that they've done on Disney Plus. I totally agree. Because that's the thing. You can see the blueprint now that it's all over. You can see the blueprint. You can see, you know, how certain storylines maybe seemed a little like meh at first, but you could see how it was advancing the story. Because I do think that there is an argument to be made that if you had spent too much time, like if you had just gone like what we were just kind of joking about a minute ago and being like nerdgasm and just doing like a straight Obi-Wan Vader all the time, having visions of each other, like all these kinds of things, it'd have been too much. So you still want those moments of like, oh my God, wow, like we're getting those things, but you gotta flesh it out. Like I don't, and again, I know we've talked about this, but I feel like it would behoove me to still say it again, is that extend the series. Extend
or make
the series.
The episodes longer. I want to get the guy. I want to get the guy with the sign from the meme to go stand out front of the Disney head office that's saying not every episode needs to be under an hour.
Like this is like, I grant you that like we are living in the day and age of ADD. Everybody's on, you know, every sort of social media, and it's hard to grab people's attention. This is not one of those franchises.
We talked about Stranger Things earlier. I beg to differ. Each one of those episodes was 90 minutes and everyone loved it.
But that's my point. But that's exactly the point I'm making, is that it's like you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff if the story is engaging. If the story is engaging and you have a fan base, you already have a fan base. You've had a fan base with Star Wars.
Fan base.
The fan base. The episodes do not need to be 48 minutes. Like, especially the finale. The finale, like, man, just hit us with a movie-length finale.
Yeah.
Give us a 2-hour finale.
All right, let's get back to this episode.
Okay.
Come on.
Stay on task. Come on.
So the other main story here was Reva going to Tatooine to try and I guess murder Luke. And as Brad pointed out earlier, we get this sort of a really great sort of like look at how much Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, who for literal years of my life I called Aunt Veru.
Same.
But
never heard.
We get this emotional look at like how much they really do like love him and care for him, to the point where like Reva says, "You really do love him as your own," and he's like, "Yes, he is my own."
He
like
is my own. Holy crap. Some of those, like those moments in that scene, like, again, it was just like, look at what you are capable of when you take your time. Those moments were beautiful, and they weren't heavy-handed at all. It was in the moment of like an intense fight scene, and having those moments going back and forth, just that quick dialogue, and even her being wounded in those moments, and like, it almost took me back to some of the other, you know, moments in Star Wars where somebody's been injured or something like that, and it's like really driving the story forward as far as like the suffering that they're going through. Which also made it
more believable that Owen and Beru could like fight her off for a little bit.
Exactly.
They can fight off those stormtroopers in A New Hope. Pair of skeletons.
That will still haunt me to this day.
They were a pair of skeletons.
Oh, just a couple of burnt corpses just in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, just 2 Halloween skeletons.
So we get the full
sand.
Yeah. We get the full like Reva babyface turn. Like she goes to try and kill Luke and like can't do it and carries him back, and then Obi-Wan tells her that she did the right thing and she's honoring the fallen younglings and that sort of thing. And we all knew that that's where it was going, and she was going to end up coming back to the light, which she did. I want to spend some time talking about like the end bits of this episode. Specifically, we go to Vader's castle on Mustafa, and we get look, he's on the little hologram thing talking to Emperor Palpatine. who
which was a great moment.
Yeah.
I was
Oh,
waiting
yeah.
for that. I thought
yeah.
it seemed obvious, but then I was kind of like, again, there's not a ton of time here. I don't
And
know if we're gonna get it.
Palpatine kind of calls him out, like he's kind of like kind of says, like he says without saying,
We
like,
have bigger fish to fry.
It's or like it's bullshit that he got away from you. So is it like maybe your feelings for your old master are clouding your judgment? And he's like, I serve you and only you. And I just,
it was great.
God damn you, J.J. Abrams and whoever else decided to just sour the Emperor's legacy in The Last Jedi. God.
We can't.
Yeah, I'm not going because I love Palpatine. One of the shows that I would love to see them do. One of the shows that I would love to see them do on Disney Plus is like a Palpatine origin story. Like I would love, like, give us like a Sith origin story with like a young Palpatine.
Don't do that though, again, unless you're gonna make it a fleshed out longer series. Because again, like don't give us a 6-episode arc. Don't do it. Either give us like a full length movie of that, or give us like a fleshed out, even couple seasons worth. Like I'd be so down. That is one character that is so the history that we have learned through, again, movies, TV shows, cartoons, all those things is so fascinating. And again, you do start to wonder if they're starting to maybe tee up some of these things.
I hope so.
Because I thought that was a great little maybe. To us as
so
fans,
good.
and we're like, oh, yeah,
even in like hologram form, he looks so good. Oh my God, I'm a huge. The reason why I had to just get it in there on the Last Jedi is because I remember when that trailer dropped and I heard his laugh at the end and I was so excited.
Rise of Skywalker.
Rise of Skywalker. Excuse me. And I just. Yeah. Anyways, moving on.
We can't.
We then get. We're going to talk about all the little loose end tie-ups here. So then we get Obi-Wan going to visit Leia on Alderaan, and he brings Lola back to her, which is a really nice moment. And she doesn't get her mind wiped.
No, but he says a line to her that kind of says, we'll be in danger if we. I can't remember the exact wording, but he kind of suggests like you and I need to keep it a secret that we know each other, or else we can.
Still doesn't make Leia's dialoog message to him in A New Hope make any sense whatsoever.
I mean, we can go on, but
I can let it go because of that.
I will say, you guys can go back to my reactions to the show after episodes 1 and 2, where I was running pretty hot on how that made. Zero sense.
Yeah.
You know what? I've kind of come around. Like it's fine. Like it's fine. Whatever. Like of all the things, I'm gonna let that one go. Was I kind of laughing that like at the end she like puts on this outfit, like suggesting this is what she's gonna wear for the next 20 years, like
for the rest of her life.
For the rest of her life, this is the only outfit she's gonna have. Like.
It was like things like that. I'm just kind of like, that's fine. That's a cute little nod. Yeah. Like that's a little moment. Yes. Again,
you know what? I get it. I just really dislike, and here's me knocking on another movie. Like it's like in Solo where like they have to explain like literally where he acquired every item on his person. Like it's like, this is where I got my vest. This is where I got my holster. This is where I got my dice. And it's just like,
this is where I got the Millennium Falcon.
Just give it him.
He stopped at a space-bound 7-Eleven and grabbed everything.
Just give it a rest. Anyway, so no, it's fine. I just every time they do something like that where they're like, I'm like, all right.
Personally, I would have appreciated some sort of like force mind wipe, and you could have done it where, we're doing it to protect her.
That's what I thought was coming. I'm shocked but again, I think they were seeing these mistakes as the show was coming out, like the rest of us, and it's kind of like, it's too late now. Like you just got to ride with what you got.
I also think that there was potentially, the concern with that route is Leia is perceived as this like powerhouse woman. Like she is a badass.
To a lot of things.
You know what I mean? Like she's not like a damsel in distress, although technically in A New Hope she kind of starts that way. But I wonder if they wanted to sort of suggest that she's too smart for that, and because she has she's force sensitive herself, that perhaps that wouldn't fly. I wonder if it was just a bit of character. They didn't want to do any sort of character assassination, that she'd be like, what? And just like
I see where you're coming from with that, Kelly, but she's still she's a child.
I will say
she's got a lot of gumption.
Yeah,
we certainly saw that over 6 episodes.
Shirley Temple made her Star Wars debut. No offense. I actually think the little girl did actually a very good job. She did a sweet job. It was more some dialogue decisions and whatever. But the thing for me actually just was that I think I could again, because they stuck the landing so well in this episode across the board, I did find it more palatable going back and thinking about some of the other things. And I think you're right. I think this would have been a little too like Mr. Fix-It, like retconning something that also happened in the show that you're currently working on. Like it just would have been a little too, it would have been like the moments that we talked about with, understanding that until Anakin got over this thing with Obi-Wan, he would always kind of be that Padawan and everything else, and that was kind of fleshed out and whatever. I think that was like the perfect blend of this, and without being heavy-handed, and I thought this was a nice way to just kind of massage that in and not make me feel like okay. But also, she's a like the thing I kept thinking too was, even if that's not how we were supposed to take that line, how old are they supposed to be in this? I think you're supposed
10?
to be like 10, 8, maybe
10?
8. Yeah.
Like it's not really an age where it's like, yes, she might remember some things, but she might actually not fully remember that being like some giant thing. Like there could have been all sorts of other stuff in her life.
I don't know, Brad. I personally would not forget being interrogated by an inquisitor. That's just
probably
me.
Not.
That's a great point. I'm forgetting that. Yeah, that's a huge moment.
You have to just accept that when it comes to that, like it or not, you have to just accept that when it comes to the Skywalker saga and timeline, there's been so much stuff, especially when you factor in like the animated shows. The timeline is a mess. It's always going to be a mess, and it just is what it is. And the goal now is to make interesting, compelling content with these characters at the to the detriment of maybe having a sensical timeline. It just is what it is. And if you can get past that was something that I really accepted when watching this show. I was like, you know what? Like if you're going to sit here and you're going to nitpick like New Hope, like how this aligns to a movie that came out in 1977 or whenever A New Hope came out, like you just let it go. Like just let it go. You got your little fan servicey moments. Like he goes back to Tatooine and he puts on this like white outfit that is just like pristine white.
Yeah, nice threads.
Like, good Lord. Which I saw on TikTok that so Marvel does a series of Star Wars comic books, and there's like an Obi-Wan like series of comics, and that's sort of his outfit that he wears. It's like the really white outfit with like the brown sort of like overcoat thing and like the goggles around his neck or on his forehead. So that's what that's a reference to. And then he goes and says goodbye to Ben or Uncle Owen, excuse me. And Uncle Owen is like, "Do you want to meet him?" And which is really touching. Yeah, really touching. Moment. And then which also makes sense. So I just sat here and said like, oh, they're forget about aligning things with A New Hope. But when Luke like runs into Obi-Wan in A New Hope, it's already like pre-established. Like he knows who this is.
Well, I wonder if he's talking about old Ben Kenobi.
Old Ben Kenobi.
Well, yeah, because again, it's like a kind of a faint memory. He kind of remembers that moment. He kind of knows what's going on, but he gives him the ship, the
little toy ship that Luke is far too old to be playing with in A New Hope, but is playing with it anyway.
He's stunted, Rob, because he's been trapped on a desert planet. He wants off.
He was going to Tosche Station to pick up some power converters.
I was genuinely hoping you'd be able to squeeze that in.
And then he's like, and to your point earlier, Brad, about how like it was a little chippy in A New Hope, and he says that, and Uncle Owen's like, you could waste time with your friends when your chores are done, you little bastard.
Now he wants him. He wants him to stay on for one more season. One more season. And then he can go. And then he can go off to space college or whatever.
Get in there, and clean those droids.
Yeah.
But it's just like, but again, like all these little things, like those were such great moments to just kind of flesh out. I thought those were so great. They were so well thought out. The writing was so tight.
The moment that I really wanted going into this show that they teased and I just accepted. Oh, it's not happening. It's not happening. We finally get at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
He's riding his what's it called away, and
Bantha? Is that right?
No, it's not. He's not riding a bantha. It's whatever.
What
like
is that called?
No,
a camel.
No.
A camel equivalent.
Camel.
I can't remember the name of
Tatooine's
it.
version of a camel.
I'll look it up so we don't look stupid to our listeners.
Oh, hey man, I'm not. Listen, I think people know by our like Obi-Wan reviews by now. If you're coming to this podcast for the ins and outs of all things like Star Wars lore, you are in the wrong
Star Wars terminology.
You are in the wrong place.
We love Star Wars. Place. It's a soft spot in all our hearts. But are we gonna quote you every single character, every single line, every single arc,
every single planet? Yeah,
no, every single planet. Hoth. They should call it Gold.
He rides away, and we finally get the Force ghost of my personal favorite Jedi of all time, the GOAT, Qui-Gon Jinn.
The GOAT.
And he's just like, I was always here, Obi-Wan. You just weren't ready to see. And then we get and then it's like presumed that he spends the next years of his life like in isolation talking to Force ghost Qui-Gon. And
which explains why he's loopy as hell when we meet up with him again in A New Hope.
He is loopy.
I have to say, I enjoyed the moment with seeing Liam Neeson back as Qui-Gon. I enjoyed it, and I did the full. I'm sure, literally, like the air went out of the room for everyone that was watching that and has been a Star Wars fan their whole life. We all went when we saw him. The moment left me a little flat, I have to say. It was just a little too like, here you go. And it's just kind of like,
I was hoping there were maybe a few more words of wisdom, maybe a little insight.
But I wanted him to show up in a moment where Qui-Gon again. Now I'm stuck on Qui-Gon. I would have loved him to come in a moment when Obi-Wan was at his lowest. So like the moment where it was,
stuck under the rocks,
and he was having those flashes with Leia and Luke, and not to take away from that moment because I thought it was very powerful. The thought of them really kind of willed him to get himself out of that situation. I would have loved there to have just been like even like a brief moment, a word, or something that he had, maybe like a quick little glimpse, and then that little payoff would have been better.
Can I present you with an alternative point?
Correct.
I think you're missing the point of Force ghosts with that take, because I think you cannot see and communicate with the dead through the Force until you are like at one and are at like your full Jedi sort of potential. And so there were moments, and I think I would have liked to have seen it a bit more, to be honest, because they would do it and then they wouldn't do it for 2 whole episodes and then they would do it again. Like there were moments throughout the show where he was trying to communicate with him and just couldn't. And like even before he went to confront Vader,
no, I get that. Yeah,
he's like talking to no one. So I think the point of, and at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Yoda says, I will teach you how to communicate with your old master, which is kind of insinuating that Obi-Wan is like not yet able or ready or knows how to communicate. And when he's under the rocks, it's sort of like thinking of Luke and Leia is what returns him to like full strength as a Jedi. And so that is what, and Qui-Gon says, I was always here, you just weren't ready to see.
Which
and I get that. I got that. It was still a good moment. It was just like, again, it was just, I feel like just because it was like right at the end, it was a nice moment, but it was just a little like, I just wanted more. At the end of the day, I think that's really what it boils down to for me. It was just like, damn, I would have liked a little bit more of that. Maybe a little bit more payoff with that moment. But hey, listen, at the end of the day, we got it. It was still cool. I was geeking out like hell when that started. So
I'm
Still
such a
very cool
Qui-Gon.
moment.
I'm such a Qui-Gon stan.
It does serve as a good reminder though of like, him arriving at his, fully formed self and being able to see Qui-Gon, like that, where this all started, and that Obi-Wan, when he took over training Anakin, was ill-equipped to do so.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that it's like, and I'm going to get kind of dark for a second, but it's like, if a parent passed away and it's like the older brother or sister has to sort of take on the role as parent, like that's sort of what that dynamic was. And I think that's what like Obi-Wan never felt like he was like the parental to Anakin. He was a brother. And so I'm like, oh, look at you, like grown up now. Like,
I'm just
like it was just,
picturing
Yeah.
I'm just picturing Andy Serkis in my head going, I could teach you to fight, but you were just a boy. You needed a father.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's it's this little reminder of just sort of the whole journey of those two. And he was just not equipped to have a young Padawan learner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I thought it was, again, and like we're getting at even as we're talking about it, it's like these emotional moments that they built into episode 5 for sure. There was a lot of great ones there too, but especially episode 6. The payoff was great. They think they nailed it in the end, which was, we got all the things that we were hoping for, which at least I felt that way.
Last thing I want to hit on before we go is, I said earlier that we sort of have like deduced every week when we've been talking about it that this show also served as like a Vader origin story and something that hit. No, not really an origin story, but like Vader sort of still becoming, like he's still ascending to become like the true Sith master. And one thing that sort of hit home for me is after he stops talking to Palpatine, we hear the Imperial March for the first time throughout the show. We hear Vader's like theme song, right?
Yes.
And honestly, that's something I've read. I've listened to a lot of different podcast reviews and I've watched a lot of videos and read a lot of posts. A lot of people were very, very underwhelmed with the music overall in this show. And I totally agree. Like they brought John Williams back to score this thing, but they didn't use like the music for the most part was pretty like, it wasn't a
just central, like center cut. Yeah.
And especially in like when the first trailer for this dropped and it had Duel of the Fates in it, and we were just like, oh my God. And it's like there were so many moments in the show where like Vader's just walking around. There's no reason why you couldn't have while he's walking around. And it's just so it was nice to hear that at the end. It was like, okay, finally, here we go. Like interesting.
I do think that it's also interesting where I do think a tie-in, like as far as timeline is concerned and where he is strength-wise and everything else, that I was kind of taking in as that fight with Obi-Wan was going on and he was kind of getting schooled, whether it was because he was getting outclassed or because he couldn't bring himself still. And like even the line like we talked about earlier in this episode of like, I killed him. It's like, does he actually believe that? Or is it just lip service because he's trying to get across this point of like, I'm the better one, I'm darker, I'm this, I'm that. And knowing where he is in this show, in his like training or where he is in his strength and everything else, and seeing him in that moment in Rogue One, where he's chasing that chip down the hallway and the plans for the Death Star and like seeing him where he is in that moment, I think there's so much potential to show us what goes on between X and Y. I think that's going to be great if they go for it.
I keep saying origin, but it was more of like a further descent into the dark.
Correct.
And even like the part with Palpatine at the end where Palpatine kind of challenges him and for essentially calls him like come on, like
get it together.
You're soft, basically, is what he says to him.
Yeah.
And like that only just that Palpatine knows what he's doing. That's fueling his anger. It's just making him more angry and pushing him further and further into the dark. And that's sort of
I think the music aspect that you were referencing earlier, Rob, I think that was probably done on purpose because if you listen to some of the music in the earlier episodes, they're sampling stuff that we know. And it's like, we wait till the end where it's like, okay, he's accepting that Palpatine's not going to take any more of this bullshit, and he's got to get on board with the Empire. But I agree that I think the music that they had throughout the rest of the episode just wasn't as impactful as
I think they kind of got people's hopes up. They got people's hopes up with the first trailer, and then the announcement that John Williams was scoring the series. And it's like,
yeah,
John Williams is not the kind of composer you bring in to just do sort of background music that you don't really notice. It's like, no, you bring him in for all the incredible work he's done on the series
crescendoing
previously. Yes.
Big orchestra. Yeah. I was a little, it's funny that you bring it up. I don't even know that I clearly missed it to some degree, because I was, now that we're even talking about it, I'm going, yeah. Why didn't they pump more because like we all know, and this is a movie trope as old as time, or a show trope, I guess, but the way that you score a film or the way you score a show can absolutely change the performance and the dynamic that you have from maybe what you initially got. Because they even talk about that with the original Star Wars movies. Like, the editing was awful originally, and they didn't know necessarily how they were going to do it musically. And then John Williams came in after they kind of sorted out the editing a little bit, and then his music really, really tied it all back together to make it what we all now know and love. So yeah, I think it's an interesting point. Yeah, that they didn't really use him maybe to his full capacity.
All right. We're going to get out of here. But before we do, we did this after Moon Knight. We're going to do it here. I want a letter grade for the 6-episode season of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'll go first just to give you guys time to think about it. I'm going to go just a B, just a straight B. Excellent Vader moments. They did. Vader's whole portrayal in this show was amazing. Ewan McGregor's great. The moments they had with them were really awesome. All the reasons why we've talked about for things we have liked and haven't liked, we don't need to go through them again. I'm going to go B.
Yeah, I think this show is the definition of a B. It's like, we didn't, you had really good moments. You had some not so great moments, but overall, when you look at it together, it didn't excel as a full piece of work because of all the things that we've discussed, and it just left me wanting more to reach that A+ status.
Mm-hmm.
And really just to make those amazing moments that it did have feel more impactful by just giving us a little bit more of that Ewan and Hayden acting dynamic. I just wanted more of that. And you would have seen me be much happier with this show and less crappy running scenes in the first episode with Flea. I can't get that image out of my head. That was brutal.
Yeah.
Brad?
You know what? I'm going to go just maybe a slightly higher. I'll give it a B+. Only because
Brad's giving it the higher
than Kelly and I.
What?
You know what? I'm the beneficiary of going last, so I'm thinking about these things even as you guys are talking, and I genuinely think after episode 4, we're talking a different letter grade altogether. Not to be ultra negative or anything, but I do think the overall execution on the storylines that they did start, and they seemed choppy at times, and they necessarily weren't even full circle. I think they were able to do what a lot of the other shows that they have made over there at Disney, while we still like some of them in moments, whatever, there's been this ongoing conversation of they're not landing. This landed so well for me at the end. It gets a little bit of a bump for me just because the emotional beats in the last episode and in episode 5, I'm going to stick to it. And I think that it's a solid B+. And I think it's also, I'm giving it a little bump also because what I think it might potentially set up for in the future with hopefully movies or extended TV shows. I wouldn't even mind, especially because the hate that Reva was getting, the actress or just the character was getting, they capped that character so well. I could even see her getting her own spin-off show as well. And
her versus the Inquisitors. She's hunting the Inquisitors.
I think there's so much potential there. So like I said, I give it, there was problems, but what they did in the home stretch, I think really, really saved that show.
So basically the complete opposite of Moon Knight, because we loved Moon Knight and then it didn't stick the landing. And then this show, we struggled. And then in the final 2 episodes, they really stuck the landing.
Yeah, which is, listen, I would, not to crap on Moon Knight, but I would take this over.
I agree.
I would rather it start like this and kind of go, uh-oh, and then it go, woof, the way it did. So I'm, like I said, B+.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this week. We will be back next week with a full spoiler review of Elvis. We're going off the beaten path here. We're usually like hyper nerd show, but we got to go. This is a huge blockbuster movie. We're all gonna go see it and review it. So make sure you like and subscribe. Hit those 2 buttons below so you don't miss that. And that's gonna do it for us this week, guys. We'll see you next time.
Next week.
See ya.
Bye.